overseas, overseas, overseas. So let's talk about the word overseas. As a part of speech, it's an adjective, which means it describes a noun or pronoun. In common usage, overseas refers to something that is located outside one's own country, especially when talking about travel or business in English-speaking countries like America, Canada, the UK, and Australia. For example, you might say, I have family living overseas who I haven't seen in years. It can also refer to something that happens or exists abroad, such as the company has offices overseas that handle international trade. What's special about overseas is that it's often used interchangeably with abroad, but some people might use them slightly differently. Abroad can imply a sense of travel or adventure, while overseas tends to be more straightforward. Either way, both words convey the idea of something being outside one's own country. Here are 3 practical example sentences using the word overseas, along with a brief context explanation for each. I'm writing to inform you that my cousin will be attending university overseas next semester, so we won't be able to visit her as planned. Formal usage. This sentence is an example of how overseas can be used in a formal letter or email, typically written by someone in a position of authority. I've got a friend who's moving overseas for work and I'm going to miss our weekly coffee dates. Casual conversation usage. In everyday conversations with friends or family, using the word overseas is a common way to describe traveling to another country or moving abroad. The company has offices and partners located all over the world, with major operations overseas in Asia, Europe, and North America. Business or academic usage. This sentence illustrates how overseas can be used in a professional or academic context to refer to international business relationships, trade, or research collaborations. So you're trying to learn this phrase overseas, right? Well, essentially, it refers to places that are far away from where you live, usually on different continents. Imagine someone saying they went on vacation to a beautiful beach in Thailand or Brazil. That's what we mean by out there. It's like the opposite of being at home in your own country. Similar concepts might be abroad or internationally. And some people even use the phrase globally to talk about things happening everywhere on our planet. When you travel, study, work, or live overseas, it means you're not just staying in one place. You're experiencing new cultures, meeting people from different backgrounds, and maybe even learning a new language. That's all part of the adventure. Proceed. 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 Let's talk about the word proceed. So, proceed is a verb, which means it shows an action or a state of being. Common usage-wise, when someone says something precedes an event or situation, they're implying that it happened or occurred before that particular thing took place. For example, in a sentence like, the warning sign preceded the accident by 10 minutes. What's happening is that the warning sign was shown before the actual accident happened. What's really important to remember here is that precede has a specific meaning. It doesn't mean something just happened at the same time as another thing, but rather it happened earlier. So you're learning English and want to use the verb proceed in context. I'd be happy to help. With that, let's start with a formal usage. The ceremony will precede the official inauguration of the new museum, which is scheduled for 2 p.m. In this example, we're talking about an event where one thing happens before another, and it sounds really polished and professional. Now, If you were chatting with friends at a coffee shop, you might say something like, I'm going to meet my friend at the concert, but I'll have to precede him by 10 minutes to grab a good spot. In this case, we're using precede to mean getting somewhere before someone else does. And it's a casual way to convey that idea. Finally, if you were writing an academic paper on environmental policy, you might use the implementation of the new recycling program will precede the expected reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, which means one event happens before another. And it's a clear and concise way to express that relationship. So, you're trying to figure out what precede means. Well, imagine you're going somewhere with a friend and you need to arrive before them. That's basically it. To precede someone or something is to go first. Get there ahead of time, so that they come after you. It's like being the leader in a parade. You march at the front, and then everyone else follows behind you. In everyday life, this can be something as simple as getting ready for work before your boss does, or showing up early to a party to save the best spot. The main thing is that you're there first, making it possible for others to come after you. Presume. 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 So, let's talk about the word presume. As a verb, presume means to take it for granted that something is true without having proof, often based on general knowledge or past experiences. In common usage, people might say things like, I presume you've heard the news, or, we presumed it was going to rain, and brought our umbrellas, which shows how this word can be used in everyday conversation. What's interesting about presume is that it's often confused with assume. But there's a subtle difference. When we assume something, we're more actively taking on a particular attitude or behavior based on what we think, whereas presuming is more about accepting or taking for granted that a certain situation exists. You're looking for examples of how to use the word presume in different contexts. In formal situations, such as writing a letter to a university admissions office, you might say, I presume that you require a personal statement and 2 letters of recommendation from academic referees as part of your application process. Here, the context is an official university correspondence, where using presume implies a polite and respectful tone towards the institution. In casual conversations with friends or colleagues, like when discussing a recent event, you might say, I presume that's why she was so late. I heard there were massive traffic jams on the highway. This context is relaxed and informal, where presume is used to express a logical assumption based on prior knowledge. In business or academic writing, such as in a research paper discussing market trends, you might say, we presume that an increase in demand for eco-friendly products will lead to a corresponding rise in sales figures. In this context, using presume implies a hypothesis or prediction based on available data and research. So, you want to know what presume means? Well, basically, it's when you make an educated guess about something without having all the facts. It's like taking a step forward and making an assumption based on what you already know. You might say something like, I presume it will rain tomorrow, even if you don't actually have weather forecast in front of you. This verb is closely related to other concepts like suppose, guess, or infer, which all mean making an educated guess about something. In terms of how it's used, people often use presume when they want to show that their assumption might not be 100% correct, but they're fairly confident in what they think will happen or is true.